Okay. That's recorded now. So,
All right.
so now, so we'll probably have to talk about some of the stuff that we already just talked about.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, so that's okay. So, yeah, just give me the last probably, kind of a chronology of what happened since the beginning of the year and
Yeah.
where you're at and what's been going on. Just a short one. And by the way, this is a 30-40 minute version of Zoom, so I'll let you know when we get close to the end.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. So, well, like most of the world in January, we're all kind of aware of the virus in Asia and what it's doing there, and you're kind of thinking, you're trying to see what's going on, but it was really business as usual until the end of February. So we had a few initiatives going. We actually had two of our Bible study groups, discipleship groups that we had going. One of them was kind of stagnant, and the members were kind of just getting busy with life. And then the other group was actually growing and doing well. And then we were about to launch a third style of a study group, where basically we were going to rent a room in a coffee shop every Wednesday night. It was going to be kind of a really informal gathering, and not really deep study, but just kind of like I would share a story from Scripture about a practical problem that somebody in the Bible went through, maybe anxiety, maybe family issues, just things like that. And then we would have discussion questions. So we were really trying to set that up for it's almost everyone around where we live is totally unchurched. They might claim to be Catholic or Anglican or Methodist, but they never attend or anything. So when you say Bible study, it sounds like something that they would never do. So we're going to call them growth groups, and it's really just about getting together and people spending, having a community where we're growing from each other. And that was going to launch on April the 1st. Well, South Africa started getting all these coronavirus cases toward the end of March, and the president declared a national disaster. And on March 27th, our lockdown began. And that obviously changed what we were able to do. Basically, from March 27th until April the 30th, you could only leave your home for grocery stores or pharmacies or medical attention, obviously, if you need to go to the hospital. So for those, 35 days or so, our two kids never left our apartment. We're fortunate enough to have a wonderful apartment on the fourth floor of a building, but we don't have a yard. We don't have like any grass or anything. So that was pretty restrictive for the kids. Thankfully, our kids are only 3 and 2. They're a year and a half apart, so they're not like at the age where they need to just run nonstop. I think if it would have been another year or two later, it would have been much more difficult. But we have a little dog too. So the only thing that my wife and I were able to do were to take our dog. There's a little section of rocks right in front of our building. We take her there and go right back in the building. And then I went to the grocery store once a week for those 5 weeks. And then at the beginning of May, they allowed winter clothing stores, and I think a few other things, but all that really affected us were the winter clothing. So then you could only leave your home for groceries, pharmacies, or winter clothing, because South Africa, of course, is going into winter now. So it was still pretty restrictive, and we actually are. We have a couple of acquaintances that are in local government there in Cape Town. And through one of our connections, I was in a discussion with the deputy speaker of our Western Cape Parliament. So our provincial parliament, the deputy speaker was in a conversation with us, and they basically listed 5 different levels of lockdown, and 5 being the most strict, and level 1 would be the soonest that you could leave your home to be able to meet with people in that informal discipleship way, that the way that we have been doing. And so someone just asked her point blank, when do you think level 1 is going to be here? And she said, if we do everything right, the soonest we'll be at level 1 is by the end of the year. And so that just hit us like a ton of bricks. We thought, wow, I mean, first of all, just the personal, like, we're going to be confined in our apartment for 6 months. And then thinking about the ministry side of things, wow, we're not gonna be able to meet any of these people face to face. We don't have a formal church yet. We've only been there for a year and a half. So everything is this informal lunches and coffee shop meetings and things like that, people in our home. And so then we really started to pray about, okay, Lord, what would you like us to do? We have a furlough planned for next year where we'd be here in the States for 6 months, raising more money and trying to recruit some family to join us. And we thought, man, how bad would it be if we were stuck in our apartments for 6 months here? And then as soon as the country reopens, we've got to come right to the States and miss like basically a whole year from our people. So we just prayed, Lord, would you allow us to do our furlough now? If that's your will, then allow a flight to happen. All the commercial flights had been canceled. All the embassy flights were already gone. And we just prayed, all right, God, if you want us home, then you'll make it happen. If not, we'll be here and we'll be happy here. And it took about 3 weeks. There were actually 2 different flights that we were signed up for that fell through last minute. And then the third flight we were registered for, we paid for, and then we still, we had to go get health checked and get bused to the airport. And we're like sitting on the airplane, like we're still not out yet. Like we could get grounded any moment. I mean, no one knows, no one knows what the protocol is anymore. But we took off, and once we got over the Atlantic Ocean, we thought, okay, we're probably going to make it now. And that was the week before Memorial Day. And we've been here in Virginia with my family since then. Our sending church is actually here, and they're actually in the process of looking for a new pastor. So we've been able to help out with preaching and helping out doing some of the some of the legwork while they're in that transition phase. So this coming week, we're going to travel to a few more supporting churches, visit some more family, and then hoping to book some more churches in August and September.
Yeah, that's good. So now what is it? So with South Africa, what was the ministry like before that? Because you'd been up there for what, a year and a half?
A year and a half, yeah.
How are things going, with getting to know people and everything like that when life was normal?
Yeah. So the area that we're in is extremely densely populated. If you look at like a population density map for Cape Town, South Africa, we are as dark red as you get, if it's in terms of density. Now, there are some areas that are some of the really, really poor areas where people are living in those metal shacks. That's obviously a little bit more densely populated, but we're on the wealthier side of the city, and there really aren't any churches there. There's one Catholic church, and then across the other side of that section of town, there's a couple other small ones that'll have 30 people or 20 people on a Sunday, but they're all like Anglican. There's a Methodist church, and just things like that. So we really just started to try to feel out, what's the culture here? What are people looking for? What do people think about religion? And about half the population from where we live is actually Jewish. So we didn't know that going into it. And of course, that has its own set of difficulties when you're trying to evangelize, Jewish people. So it kind of is crazy, but more than half of our friends and our connections are Jews. We have a lot of Jewish friends, Jewish families. A lot of them don't attend anywhere. They don't even go to the synagogue. They might go a couple times a year, but most of them it's more just the holidays and some of those things that they follow. But still, anything with Christianity and Jesus is like, they would never consider those things. So we kind of just realized, if this is where God's calling us to, this section of town, this is going to be kind of like a long haul, ministry here. And, the other half of the population is like what you would find in a major city in the United States. So you've got a lot of people they kind of look at religion as like old fashioned, outdated, like it's something that my parents did. Or they might see themselves as just like a nominal Catholic where, yeah, I'm not stealing from people. I'm not a murderer. So like, I'm a pretty decent person, but they never attend anywhere. So it's really building relationships. That's what our whole ministry is right now is getting to know people. They always ask why we're there because we obviously we're Americans, and they we're a young family. Why are you here? Why did you move all the way over here? And so we share with them, we're actually starting a church right here. And, oh, really? Well, what kind of church? And so you kind of get to share with them your whole thing pretty early. And then it's just establishing that relationship with them so that eventually, more and more questions open up. And we've found different ways to kind of keep the conversation going. And as I mentioned, we had those 2 study groups. One of the study groups, we had 3 different families in that one, and one of them moved away, and the other 2 started new jobs. So it just that one started to kind of fall away, and then the other group really started to actually pick up, and has since the lockdown. We've gone from 4, we had 5 members. Now we have 10 members in the group since the lockdown started. So that's just happening online right now with that study group. So that's been kind of cool. But yeah, it's really just been building the relationships. And then, I mentioned that new style of study group that we were going to do in that coffee shop. We had probably 20 to 25 people. Most of them were non-believers that were interested in coming to that. So we were so excited about that. And that was really a kick, to us once we realized we couldn't go on with that. But we're actually trying to figure out how we can start doing that same style online, and even just record it and just see if people can just forward that video to as many people as they can get it to. And as it kind of grows that way, it'll be a whole different growth strategy. But I think we can still kind of get this thing off the ground a little bit so that whenever we get back in person, we can just start right away, with some kind of a core group.
Yeah. Wow. So now what are the people like there? Are they friendly? Or are they, you mentioned surprising about how many Jewish families were there. Are they young?
Yeah.
Is it racially mixed? I don't know. Sometimes when you think of South Africa, you remember the apartheid and the whites and the blacks. It's kind of like, difficulties that we're having to stay. So what is the population like?
Yeah. It's still pretty racially segregated. Well, basically the way that you would see it in the US, outside of a big city. So, you've got areas that are a little bit more mixed than others. So our area it's not the most mixed area, but it is more mixed than a lot of the other areas. Just down the road from us is a really wealthy side of the city, about 10 minutes away, and that's almost all white. But where we live it's somewhere like 2/3 white or something like that, and the rest are black or mixed. And but even those who aren't white, over 90% of the home language in our area is English. So that's been really nice that most of them don't even know a second language in our side of town. So that's been really, really nice and easy way to kind of connect with people. People are generally friendly. They assume that we're tourists. And then once they realize that we live there, most people don't live where we live for a long time unless their family's been there for 3 or 4 generations. So it's a really transient community. So they all assume that we're just going to leave soon. So one thing is they're very friendly on the surface, but they're kind of resistant to kind of digging in and getting to know you deeper because they don't think you're going to be there very long. So one thing about the longevity of being there is that the longer we're there, the more people are going to really be interested in getting to know us. I mean, several of our friends, we stayed through lockdown, and our plan was to stay through the whole, coronavirus lockdown, because we thought that would show our community that we're here to stay. And the only reason we came home was because we thought our furlough being next year would be worse than this. So we kind of had two bad choices, and we just did the one we thought would be less bad, and God allowed it. But when they realized that we didn't leave before the lockdown, because there were several flight options for Americans and we didn't take any of them, all of our friends were like really surprised. They were like, so are you staying here? And we said, yeah, I mean, this is our home. This is where we want to be. And then when we told our friends that we were coming back for on the flight that we got on, they all thought that this was it, and they were all like sad and, oh well, we're gonna miss you. And then we realized they thought we were never coming back. We said, no, we're coming back as soon as things open up. I mean, this is just a temporary thing. And And it's going to take some time, but once we have been there 5 or 6 years and people realize that we're in it for the long haul, that'll really open up some of those relationships more. But we've been involved in several community groups. I'm a member of the Rotary Club.
Hmm.
My wife's part of different mom groups and teacher groups and all sorts of things. And the more that we are involved, and obviously when our kids get old enough to be in school, all of those things, you people will really begin to realize that we are in it for the long haul. And we're looking forward to that really opening up some of these relationships as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's really neat. So now, are there other? You mentioned that as far as where you're living, that there's not too many churches. Are you able to fellowship with other pastors, of like faith, or are you kind of out there, kind of by yourself for a little while?
Yeah. So basically, for our visa, we had to have a sponsor,
Yeah.
and so to do that, we had to find somebody who would understand what we're doing and be of like faith. So we actually, did a lot of research, and the closest group that is practically identical to what we're doing, they live about 6 hours away. So they're our sponsor. So it's they are far away from us, but we see them about 4 times a year. They actually, the head guy out there has been a missionary in Cape Town for like 30 years, and then he just moved that far away. So his sons still live in Cape Town. So he comes all the time. We go out there a couple times a year. So we get to fellowship with them 3 or 4 times a year, and that's been amazing. Besides that, in Cape Town itself, on our side of that area, there's just the Catholic Church, and it's really Orthodox, so just very, very different. But there are about 10 to 15 minutes away, there's a couple of like non-denominational churches, and we know the pastor there really well. We've been hanging out with their family. They tend to be pretty charismatic and not really deep theologically, so there are some issues. A lot of the teaching is prosperity, gospel things. And so it's nice having some friends that are in ministry that understand ministry, but as far as being able to do ministry together or even have those deeper conversations about theology or things like that, we don't really have that right now. And that's one of the reasons why we want to recruit some more families to come join us. I mean,
Yeah.
we really believe that team ministry is the best way by far for the church in Cape Town to grow and to prosper, and even for us, I think that us being there alone is dangerous. And so we're hoping that God will send us some more families. We actually have 2 families right now that are praying about it, and one of them is probably going to be joining us in the next year.
Wow, that's good.
So we're hoping that this guy that's 6 hours away, he's recruited about 10 families to join him out there. So he's kind of helping us on the recruiting aspect, and we're trying to be able to. I mean, I would love to have 10 of us families all together starting a church there in Cape Town, and that would really obviously not only expand how many people we're coming in contact with, but it would also give us missionaries that support network where we're taking care of each other's kids, we're rejoicing together, we're crying together, we're sharing all of this ministry together. And that's really the way forward for our ministry there.
Yeah, I've seen that work in a lot of places where they'll have 4 or 5,
Hmm.
missionaries, and even starting a church in the U.S. I've seen where they'll go
Yeah,
out more as teams.
yeah, definitely.
You've got some people that you can bounce ideas off with, and you're not that up there all by yourself. So that's good.
Yeah.
So when you're going to start getting out into other churches, are churches opening back up again to allow missionaries to come in to present their work like you're doing?
Yeah, so that's where we are now, trying to figure that out. The next 2 Sundays, we're going to be speaking at our current supporting churches, and then we've got about 3 weekends where we're going to be with my family in Kansas City, and then Megan's family in Dallas, and then we have a couple churches booked in Texas. We were trying to book more, and then they had canceled some other missionaries, so they were trying to get them in first before they brought in others. So we are having some difficulties. We did get into a missions conference in September, And so that's kind of, it's kind of hit or miss. It just really depends. I mean, we're calling churches as much as we can, and trying to, you're trying to not jump all over the country every other weekend, but
Mhm.
you also kind of have to take what you can get at this stage, because every church is in its own stage of reopening. And
Yeah.
yeah, so we're really just praying, God brought us back to the States for this time, and we're going to work as hard as we can to book as many as we can. And whatever happens, we're going to trust that God is going to provide. But we're hoping to be able to book August, September, and October. I'd love to have all 3 of those months booked. So far, I've got 4 of the Sundays from those 3 months booked, and we'll see. I've got a lot of lunch appointments with pastors, with new churches, and yeah, we're just gonna see what God allows to happen. And if we're not able to book a Sunday, we'll just find a church in the area to visit and pop in, and we'll we'll just see what God allows. Obviously, God has a plan for all this, as we all know, and we're just gonna kind of, we're along for the ride.
Yeah. Now, because so your wife is from Kansas City?
No, she's from Dallas. So my
Dallas.
brother, yeah, my brother's in Kansas City. So we're
Okay.
gonna go see them. He actually has a new son that we haven't met yet. So he has 3 kids. We're gonna go see them the week of July 4th,
Uh-huh.
and then we're gonna be in Dallas with Megan's family after that.
Yeah. Now you're with the Baptist Bible Fellowship. Is
That's right.
that right? Yeah. Because I know their national meeting in Springfield got canceled in
Yeah,
May, and then
yeah.
the national meeting is going to be in Kansas City in September.
Oh, is it? Oh, good.
Yeah. So that might be something to look at
Yeah.
to go around there. But they're going to have that.
Okay.
Um, and then I know because they weren't able to approve new missionaries, they're going to approve some missionaries, or at least have that. I don't know what you call it. The interviews and things like that for missionaries.
Yeah.
So that's going to be in July. I'm going to that because I have a field representative, and I guess they're going to approve some of them in the September meeting. So
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I've been seeing some of those emails about having to adjust the process, and that's really what I feel for these new missionaries on deputation.
yes,
They don't have the support group already. Some of them maybe just started and their support is really low because they haven't had enough time to raise it yet. And we're thankfully in a great spot where none of our churches have dropped anything yet. So we thank the Lord for that. But some of these missionaries the timing was just really rough. And again, God knows and God's going to provide. It's all part of that journey for them. But, you hope that churches are able to get these new missionaries on deputation in quickly.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting. We were looking at some of the missionaries, and we have one missionary. He actually just quit his secular job in the beginning of
Wow.
January to go
Wow.
full time, and had 6 months already booked, and he was 3 months, 2.5 months into it, and it just wheels fell off the cart. And I feel sorry. And then I know John Connerup, one of the things that he was telling all the pastors is, having to make adjustments, because if
Yeah.
missions money isn't coming in, then it's not going out to missionaries, and they're
Yeah.
missionaries that are hurting. So, but fortunate for our church, we've been able to maintain our regular missions offering, and so
Yeah.
you know we were a little bit scared.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't know what's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah, you never know
You
how
guys,
it's going to happen. But I think a lot of the churches that we've talked to, their giving has actually gone up somehow during all this. So I think it just depends what area of the country and what, if a lot of your people are in one, job, one type of job, and that industry was shut down for a few months, and then you are really going to hurt.
yeah. Well, I think with us, part of it was you knew that some people weren't going to be able to do it, and so other people that could, they just bumped it up a little bit.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow.
so yeah. So I think I was talking to our chairman of the deacon board, and we think we're right exactly where we would have been had we not had anything. We're actually probably doing better. But
Wow. That's amazing.
yeah, going into the summertime, that was good, because summertime is usually traditionally low anyway.
Yeah, that's
We'll
right.
see how it goes. So
That's
the family's doing well, adjusting back to being with
Yeah, yeah. I think everyone's doing fine. You know, it took probably a week and a half to adjust to the time change, and then we've been hanging out. My oldest brother lives here in Virginia. He's got 3 kids, so our kids have been playing almost every day, and yeah, they're loving being at grandma and papa's house, and yeah, so our kids are much more flexible than we adults are, so especially at this age. So yeah, they're loving it, and yeah, everyone's doing great.
Yeah, and it's good because kids are off of school, and so there's
Yeah,
some free time. And once they start opening, like here in the town, in our town, you can go to the park, you can go back to certain
yeah,
places.
yeah,
So it's a lot better.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
So now, is there anything that you guys are in need of, or prayer wise, or something like that? I know during this transition time, or even going back, any concerns that you might have that our congregation might just pray for you, or some way help you?
Yeah, we've actually been supporting several families in South Africa. Unemployment was already 20% before this, and it's now gone up over 30%. South Africa is so when lockdown started back in March, on March 27th, there was only like 250 cases in the whole country, and the country's got 55 million people. And now today we're up over 70 something thousand cases. So we're in the
Oh,
country, we're going up about 4,000 cases a day. So it's really picking up, and now they're starting to open up things because it's almost like they shut down too soon. And now they have to open up for the economy's sake, but right now is when, I mean, we're still probably 3 or 4 weeks away from the peak. So first of all, pray for the health issues there. Thankfully, the death rate is about percentage wise what it is, globally. It's probably about 2%. So still terrible, but you have 70,000 cases, which you've only had 1,500 that have passed away. But there's so many underlying health things there with HIV, obviously, and tuberculosis is another huge one. And all of our friends lost their jobs. Well, all of the ones that are our age lost their jobs. Some of them were able to be paid 50%. And then others, we have a lot of friends who are actually refugees from other African countries. And because they're not residents of South Africa, they got no government assistance. So we've actually been helping them with food vouchers. 2 families were helping subsidize their rent. It's so that we have on our last prayer letter, we did send out a link, and if anyone wants to donate for coronavirus relief, every penny that's donated and specified for that will go directly to families who need to be fed or
right.
to subsidize rent. And right now it's pretty much all food. So we support a few projects through our Rotary Club that's also getting food to families in need. So if anyone does want to give, they can give through the BBFI portal. You can go to our website, or they can just give straight through your church and designate Blake Hunter coronavirus relief. And as that comes in, 100% of that, every penny will go right to the families there in Cape Town. But in terms of us personally, we're actually doing great. My uncle donated his car to us to use. I mean, yeah, we really can't complain. Obviously, there are some additional travel costs while we're here. But as we get to more churches, and love offerings come in, I think that'll probably offset. So yeah, I mean, there's always little things here and there, but the big thing now is helping those families in South Africa. I was just talking with 2 families today, and tomorrow I've got another study group that we're doing with those 10 people in that group tomorrow morning. And all of them have lost their jobs. One of them lost their home, and that's really the big one right now. And just praying that. One of them told me today, he works in the restaurant industry. He said that they think in the middle of July they'll be able to get back to work. So that's what we're praying for. Pray for these countries around the world that don't have the infrastructure to be able to bounce back like our country does and like Europe does. South Africa, you think of South Africa is like it's like a first world country and a third world country. It's like a really weird mix of of things. But then you think of like the traditional third world countries around the world that are just going to be totally devastated by this. And we've got so many missionaries in the BBFI that are in these areas. And, anything that if people want to pray for is pray for the families that are going through something that we can't even fathom. We've had some weird moments, but we've never had to go hungry during these last 3 months, and a lot of our people have. So yeah, again, if anybody wants to give toward that, we would, there's never an end to how many people we can help with that. But our family is great. But pray that we'll be able to book more churches, and then pray that we'll also be able to recruit some more families to join us.
Okay. Yeah, I think that'd be great. Yeah, as you go around and connect with people. So
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're just about out of time.
Cool.
Hey, it's great to see you. I
Yeah,
think you're doing well. Go back home for a while.
Yeah.
So that's good.
All right. Yeah. Well, hopefully, maybe if we're up in Michigan sometime, we can pop in and see you guys. We have nothing booked up there yet, but you never know. So
Yeah.
see what happens.
If you're up this way, that's fine. But if you get over to Kansas City, I think I'm going to go to that meeting as well.
Okay. Cool.
So whatever happens,
yeah,
we can catch you.
And thank you guys, of course, for your support. You've never missed, and we've always, of course, we enjoyed our time with you whenever we were there. That's probably 2 years ago now, I think it was.
Yeah.
But just thank you guys for your support and your prayers. We know that so many of you are faithfully praying for us, and that's really what sustains us missionaries on the field.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Appreciate that.
All right, Pastor.
All right. Well, tell your wife and kids we said hi.
I will.
Thanks.
All right. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Blake.
Bye-bye.
Bye.